Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. We're going to do something the same, but a little different. Now, just a few months ago, in the dead of summer, I did body and paint work on a 2009 Cardinal fifth wheel to start developing my bodywork skills in order to build some confidence in some more projects down the road. Now, very luckily for me, I have my partner here, Tom, that does body and paint work. And now in that Cardinal series, I did all the work myself. I did have Tom helping me out a bit, and this is his job, so I won't be messing up his job because my work is not nearly as good. But in that series, I did get a lot of comments from people that complained that I didn't show painting enough, and they felt that, I don't know, I was dishonest about the whole system. Not only did a lot of you guys call me out for not showing the painting process and how to put paint down, but you also called me out for calling the spray gun that I used an airless sprayer, because it's not an airless sprayer, it does use air. But instead of using compressed air like you would normally find in an auto body paint shop, but instead it uses a high velocity blower, not too much different than a leaf blower. Well, I mean, substantially different than a blower. They actually have a specialized gun so that it lays down the paint correctly too. And it filters the air also. Now, my friend and painter, Tom, he generally calls it a turbine or turbine blower. And the reason why he uses them are many-fold. One, they're incredibly simple, lightweight to move around. You don't have to worry about dragging a big air compressor with you. Two, look at the clouds in the air above us. There is a lot of moisture in the air, and as you compress air, you get a lot of moisture that gets built up inside the tank, so you do cause problems with paint. You have to dry the air that you just compressed so you can paint. Now, because the turbine or the blower is not compressing air, moisture is not as big of a problem. Now, a third problem that you're going to find when you're painting with compressed air is that the air compressor itself uses oil to keep itself lubricated, and oil is a horrible thing when you're trying to lay down paint. Now, the fourth problem is consistency. Air compressors generally have a duty cycle on them. They'll build up to their shutoff pressure, and then as you start using pressure, or out of the tank here, the pressure inside the tank starts to go down. Now, the compressor doesn't turn on immediately. It'll go maybe from 120 all the way down to about 90, 95 PSI. Then the motor kicks back in again as it starts to build pressure up. While you're in the process of laying down paint, or clear coat, or whatever product you're putting down, your air pressure supply is actually variable. So it could be 120 to 90, 95 PSI, which can affect the spray pattern as you're painting. Now, while it's more likely a problem with smaller air compressors than a big shop air compressor, with a blower sprayer paint system, it's a consistent pressure the entire time. The fifth reason, which I'm sure a lot of people are yelling at me, is, well, that's why I use a regulated air pressure. So you have a very consistent pressure right there. This will still going to be affected by lower pressures going up and down. Not nearly as bad, but you'd also be surprised how many people don't actually end up using this. And even though you can probably barely make it out, this says maximum input is 28, 29 PSI. A lot of painters, including myself, don't respect that guideline nearly as much, which means the fifth reason is that with lower pressure that you're going to get out of the blower, you use less material. There's a lot less waste in the whole thing. If you've ever seen anybody painting and it looks like a big cloud of dust is coming off of it, more than likely their air pressure is way too high and they're wasting a lot of material, be it the clear urethane or even the base paint color. So that's at least 5 reasons why Tom says he uses a blower or a turbine or a power paint sprayer. So imagine my surprise when Phalanx reached out to me after watching that video, or a series of video, and asked me to try out their paint sprayer. I said, sure, why not? And they sent me the Phalanx 5-stage paint sprayer. The only problem is I didn't have anything to paint. Now, even though the shop is beginning to fill up quite a bit, my 2009 Cardinal fifth wheel has safely gone down the road, and so I don't have anything that I can work on to show you how to paint. Or do I? Now, if you remember a few years ago, well, maybe a lot more than a few years ago, I did pick up a 1999 F350 Super Duty. That has been something of a shop vehicle for me and has already been the subject of a lot of videos, even some videos that I never did end up editing. Now, you watched me put the universal rails on for a fifth wheel hitch on the bed of the truck, and we even did a fuel pump, and I did a cheat for the next fuel pump I had to do. But we won't talk about that. However, when I did the fuel pump, I took the bed of the truck off and we painted it when it was off. And that paint looks pretty good. It looks so good that I ended up painting the side view mirrors too. But one issue I had at the time was I didn't have a good tailgate for this thing. In fact, my tailgate got crushed doing a TPO roof for Cassone's RV. And my son went to the junkyard and found me a new tailgate a few years ago. And the ironic thing is that it came off an F-150. So apparently an F-150 and a 250 and a 350 of this era, the tailgate's the exact same. But as you can see, it is a junkyard special. The paint's in bad shape, but I'm lucky enough to still have some white paint left over. Enough. So what better way to try out the Phalanx 5-stage HVLP paint sprayer and at least make my work truck look a little bit better while working on my painting skills. I would consider that plan to be all reward and no risk. But first, let's point out everything that you get with the Phalanx Turbine sprayer. See, they're even calling it a turbine. All right, the first thing is the shipping company did not do me a big favor. So that's on UPS. However, I will say, for all the damage this box took, it was packaged good enough that the only real damage that the Phalanx took was to the plastic grate that protects the air filters on the side. Now there's one on each side, so only one of them was damaged. The nice design of this is that you can just twist it that way to get access to the sponge pre-filter, and then it doesn't have a HEPA filter underneath that. Now that's actually removable too, just by twisting and pulling it out. It's a pretty ingenious design. You can almost put it in one-handed. And you can do it one-handed. And points out a nice feature about the turbine system is that you're not getting that kind of filtration with compressed air. And in the bag, it does come with extra sponge filters. And then for all you naysayers out there, you can turn it on. That's why I call it a blower. But you can also see how well it moves air. Now it does have overcurrent protection with this 15 amp breaker that'll pop out if it does overheat. You can push that in to reset it, but it does say it's pulling 11 amps when it's running. Let's find out. And it looks like it's pulling, I don't know, 1500 watts. So 1500 divided by 120, that's about 12 and a half amps, but we do have very small extension cords, about 60 feet in length. So that seems about fair. Now, besides the extra filters, of course you get the paint gun. This paint gun is developed strictly for this system right here, and it has a nice wide hole as an air connection fitting right there. Now this is a non-gravity type gun. I do like gravity a little bit better, but we'll see how this one performs. Now this one comes from the factory with a 1.2 millimeter tip on it, but check this out. If we flip this around, we can open that up, and it has a 1.8 tip and needle built into the cover right here. Yes, you'll get the tool and an extra check valve that you'll probably lose pretty quickly, but more importantly, you get this hose. Now this is a very expensive hose, and it's very long, like much longer than I was expecting, and it's nice heavy duty, so you can drag this across rocks without worrying about damaging it. I think it's adorable that it uses basically a city water connection, but don't hook up a city water to this, okay? And if we go ahead and roll this out, just like this. This is much longer than I thought it was going to be. Uh-oh. Don't want to put that in the dirt. Let's see, I have 25 feet right to there. So I'm going to say it's at least a 25-foot main hose. Probably 30 foot because it's still coiled up there. I don't know if you guys saw it at the end. It has a very flexible end that connects to the spray gun itself, because this part doesn't bend very well. So this part's very flexible, so it won't affect the way you're painting. Now I also hope you guys can see what a normal fitting looks like that you'd hook up to an air hose. When you are painting with air, volume matters more than anything. And I think you can see the different size of that orifice between the turbine system and normal compressed air. You'll get a lot better volume and control out of a hose of that size. You can never get that volume of air out of this little opening right there without extreme pressure. So much so that HVLP really means high volume, low pressure. But it connects just as easily as a normal air fitting would connect. And the last cool feature is that it has a place to rest your gun when you're not painting. That's kind of a cool feature too. Let's actually see how it paints. All right, let's see if we can't do this pretty quick. And of course, this is why I like older trucks. Pretty easy to remove. All right, you guys have already seen the condition of the truck. After all, we already have an aesthetic we're kind of working with over here. We're not going to do a factory finish on this. That's what a shop truck is supposed to look like, okay? I'm only really concerned about this outside over here, so I'll debadge it so it's no longer an F-150. But I will take the handle off. Just use a plastic razor blade. Alright, we'll use my adhesive remover. Now, this should hopefully be softened up quite a bit. Ah, yeah. A lot better. All too easy. The RV world just overlaps everything. It's like I'm doing slide out seals. Just clean this off, get all the dirt off of it. Doesn't clog up the sandpaper. And I think the price on that anyways is another good reason to go with those turbines. For a good air compressor and a generator to run it, you're probably going to be exceeding the cost of buying like 10 of those. Their flagship Phalanx 5 is really just sitting between $500 and $600 right now. And you're still going to need a paint gun. But I can't play until we spray it down. We won't know for sure how well it sprays. But of course, I do want to make sure I'm giving it the best chance. That's why I'm trying to get all the grease and dirt off first. Next, I'm going to go ahead and sand this down. I'll just use a DA with 180 grit paper on it. And we'll take it down. Get rid of all the paint flaking off. Kind of forgot how much I don't enjoy sanding. So if there's a blower, how's the blower? Alright, so really the next step is just for me to wipe it down again, because we're going to go ahead and put it in primer. But before I put in primer, we'll tape it off, because I'm only painting this side. I'm not painting the back. The back's going to get beat up either way. Now this is not a show vehicle, so I'm not getting rid of all the pit marks that are in the back of the tailgate, but we're going to try to make this look a lot better than it did. Now for brevity's sake, we're just going to use a pre-mixed primer. I'm going to cover the whole thing. A couple coats of this. Alright, so there's one coat. Do one more coat. Alright, with the second coat on, the primer on there, you can use a guide coat so when I go to sand this, I can know where I sanded. We've been through this before. I'm very aggressive and lazy with my sanding, so this at least let me know where I did sand. Again, I'm not trying to make a pristine show vehicle here, but it doesn't hurt to take some pride in what you're doing. Alright, it's the next day. It's been baking. Primer's nice and hard. Let's get this thing blocked out. I didn't want people to get mad at me for painting the primer around the bus, so I did relocate out there to paint. We'll be using 600 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to be wet sanding this and blocking it out, so I don't have to wear a mask. So we'll just wet this down so we don't clog up the paper. We're just going to try to get rid of basically the black paint that I put on there. You can see where there's basically what we would call orange peel right there. So that's what the guide coat is for. We got all the high points, and now I can take it down to the low points. So now hopefully you can see where the dings are still showing the guide coat on it, but like I said, we're not trying to make a showroom piece here. And I did use a little bit of etching primer where the metal did break through a little bit, but I'm just going to rub it down with a red Scotch pad. All right, I think we're ready to do this. Now, since it's the first time shooting it, I'm going to assume there's oil in manufacturing. I'm going to go ahead and add some lacquer thinner just to clean out the gun itself. All right, so I have the turbine on the table so we're not sucking in dirt. Man, that's a pretty good fan already, straight from the factory. What do you think, Tom? All right, now when we're painting, we want what, about half-inch overlap? Half, 50% overlap. Very convenient. Okay, gun is clean. Now we have a little bit of paint left over. Now this is single stage white. So it does have the urethane protection built into it already. I don't have a lot left of it, but it should be more than enough to do a tailgate. I don't know if you guys saw the lid. We have a ratio of 8 to 2 to 1, 8 parts paint, 2 part reducer, and 1 part hardener. And on this cup, we have 8 to 2 to 1 right there. So let's fill it up and see how much paint I actually have. So just a little above 3. All right, so with the reducer here, we'll take this just above 3. And then with the hardener, which should activate the protection on it, we take it just above 3. Probably should have gone with round numbers instead of guessing like that. Right. Get that loaded up in the can. Now there's no metal flake in this, there's no pearl, so it's just a solid white color. So it should be one of the easiest things to paint because I've already painted it before. Alright, let's go ahead and get the hose hooked up. My last step before I paint is I'm going to wipe this down with just the all-purpose glass cleaner. I do have a couple rags crammed into the handle hole right there to keep the dirt from blowing back out again. And it did do a rudimentary tape job on the side. Again, not too important because it's a tailgate of a work truck. And just like a normal paint gun, you can pull about halfway back on the trigger and just let air through to help dry it out a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and give a full blast test run. All right, looks pretty good. Now because this is single stage, what I'm going to do is a light coat to make a sticky coat first, and we'll do a follow-up coat afterwards, trying to keep it pretty wet, and we'll see how it turns out. Alright, so I went way too light right here, but that's fine, that'll all be covered. So far, looks like I put down a pretty decent layer. Obviously I went too light right here, I should have done another pass on it. But that's the problem with the siphon feed gun, is that the can of the cup, or the can of the gun gets in the way. I don't want to drag that across the surface. So while that flashes, I'll start from the bottom and work my way to the top. But I'm going to grab something so you guys don't yell at me. I'm going to go for the second coat now. All right, Tom, what do you think?
It was good.
Good enough?
Oh yeah, it was good.
It's hard to paint white in the shade. Turbine does make you almost feel like you're painting with spray paint. Like a lot easier to use than when you're using compressed air. That is to say, I didn't have to keep worrying about my air pressure or the compressor not kicking in. And it was nice and quiet compared to an air compressor running right next to your face. We carried it out in the sun and I'm already kind of impressed by my own work. And I guess I shouldn't take all the credit for it.
Came out really clean too.
Pretty clean for painting on dirt and rock. Not a lot of material in the air. And wow, that looks pretty good. You hiring, Tom? Are you hiring? All right, here we go. Looks like we only used, I guess, 2 marks. I did put about 4 coats on this because I did end up nicking the paint right about there with the bottom of the can, which I don't really like siphon feed guns, but it's better to paint it when it's laying flat anyways. Now, one thing that Phalanx is very adamant about is to clean the spray gun immediately. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll wait for the paint to cure. So maybe I have a little bit more experience painting than your average DIYer out there, but I'm not much better than a DIYer. And this was really simple. And to say that I am impressed with the results would be something of a giant understatement, guys. I thought I was putting it on way too dry, which is why I put a 4th coat on it. And we got no overspray on that. Now, one thing I didn't notice when I unboxed it is this first section of the hose right here is wrapped with almost like a heat shrink. So I think this area does get hot, but also keeps it a lot more durable. I did fight this hose a little bit. Hopefully over time it won't have such a memory on it. I do think the Phalanx 5-stage HVLP paint sprayer did one of the best paint jobs I've ever done. Looks like we're pretty much tacked up and hardened up already. This is an enamel coating on it, so I can go ahead and pull off my really bad paint job and see how unprofessional I really am. I don't know what you guys think, but I think it turned out pretty good. Very pleased with it. I've been looking to do this for quite some time. And now I can proudly say my son found a really nice tailgate at the junkyard for me. And nobody has to second guess if it's a F350 or an F150 now. I don't know if you guys saw me, I did paint the bottom of this to make it look a little bit better, but you'll never see that. And if you guys are interested in this, I will put a link to it in my description. I don't know if I have a discount code or not. But the crazy part is when you think about it, a lot of people spend on a gun. By no means is this an expensive gun, but I have seen very expensive guns cost more than this entire system right here. And I don't think you get much better results. But because you have to have something to complain about, I do wish that Phalanx had a gravity feed gun rather than a siphon feed gun. An untrained RV technician painted the tailgate of this. Heck, you can even see my reflection in the tailgate itself. And all I used was a Turbine paint sprayer from Phalanx. But let's get this out into the sun, not in the shadows, so we can talk about one more problem. Now, personally, I find this just on the bottom edge of acceptable, maybe even from a shop. But because it's a single stage, and while you can technically cut and buff it, this is still going to be a little soft for a little bit longer, so you want to hold off on doing that. There's a little bit of dryness right there, and even though I painted it in the dirt, there's really not a lot of dust in this, and I didn't prep it very well. But what are the problems? Well, first off, I need badges, and I thought I ordered them. Look at that, Ford part. And I guess I need to read instructions a little bit better, because that might be awesome, but a little big. But I'm okay with that. I'll find them eventually. I'm really not that great about ordering parts. However, I do have some follow-up thoughts about this sprayer system from Phalanx. Overall, I think it did a great job. I do like how it incorporates the spray gun holder into the assembly itself. However, I do wish it was a gravity fill gun. I did keep almost hitting, in fact, I did hit the tailgate one time with that can underneath it. And even though I had shipping damage coming into me, I would wonder if these are easily obtainable and replaceable, because chances are pretty good those are going to get broken too, moving it around. And so with that, one more project around the shop is done. And if you guys have been following along, it does look like the disaster pool had another problem. That was another problem out of the way. I have one more problem. Now I need badging for the truck. But I think this truck looks a heck of a lot better now that the tailgate isn't flaking and in primer. Except before I do that, I'm gonna have to do the front brakes. If I have a discount code for the Phalanx system, I'll go ahead and put it in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I obviously have a lot more work to do. Bye. Oh yeah, looks like you can go ahead and store the tool, even the extra, I don't know, is that a check valve in there? Which can affect the spray, which can affect the spray pattern as you're painting. And while I wish I could say the truck has held up over time, it has experienced some damage. One of my fender flares fell off. Should have put that on better. And I did do a bed liner, a spray on bed liner myself. Lesson learned is I should have put it on a lot thicker, and also I should not let batteries spill over in the bed of my pickup truck. It will not protect against that either. Even that Napa fuel pump I put in a few years ago went out again, and so I added an access port right there so I could do the fuel pump a lot easier, so I don't have to take the bed of the truck off again. And let's see, can you connect it one-handed? Would you look at that? Looks like they offer an airless spray gun. So that's airless. This is not airless. Turbine, airless. I think these are basically airless too, just a little bit smaller project ones.